Okay. I'm hoping that I'm audible here because we sometimes speak in the middle of available sound setup. And today happens to be one of those moments when my voice needs to be heard. Because, well, it's like being a journalist. Yeah. The audio setup is not perfect. There are stories to be said. And some stories are only available in the crowd. People tend to have many kinds of breathing practices. Some even have obsessive compulsive breathing habits that psychs them up into certain states of thinking. Yeah. Trance states, they say. It's not necessarily a psychedelic state, but most people's idea of psychedelics is with substance abuse. And I've even heard, I keep listening to people, different kinds of people. And I've even heard you need to dose to such an extent of certain substances to get to the level that I am. Okay. And I'm not taking any substances, normal, ordinary, harmonious living. Yeah. Vegetables and sugar, salt. Those are the crystals that sometimes I engage in. Yeah. And I also engage in checking with what happens when you don't take those crystals. Sugar, salt, oil also. Yeah, when coconut oil, you leave it for some time, it gets a little solidified. You don't necessarily call it as a crystal, but you get an idea of what a crystal is. In your own body, if the crystals are not digested regularly, you could have stone concerns or crystalline concerns, which may even poke into your tissues. Not very nice. Yeah. So our body is best with fluid substances and organic tissues, not pokies. Yeah. And it's important to also digest, metabolize these crystals and different stuff, which is why we have teeth. But once inside our body also needs to have teeth, so to speak, good enough to digest this stuff. For example, you could be eating seeds. You don't necessarily bite into every little sesame seed. Yeah. Or the sclerites inside a pear. Pear has sclerites, and they need to be digested. Otherwise, they are in one side, out the other. That does not necessarily have those kinds of benefits from eating those tough substances. Which is why a teeth inside a body needs to be good enough. Yeah, and that's not necessarily microbes. Microbes having teeth. Yeah. Healthy natural breathing is to get you out of the psychedelic practices, obsessive compulsive, into a certain trance state, so you can think of certain things. But people also do that, and then they come up with the creatives, and then I come up with, don't do that. Yeah. So mine is about course correction too. So people tend to do certain things, and then we are having the economy the way it is at different people, different stages of development. So there are wounds to be healed and practices that needs to better not do that. Yeah, there are other things too. There are better ways to live a human life. So while what I'm saying may be new to a lot of people, life has been getting better since some time. The fabric of time-space has been healing since some time. And I'm speaking from the health industry, healing industry. Yeah. And that takes certain fine principles. There is non-violence, such as non-violence, such as love, immaculate intimacy. Yeah. And that involves paying attention to your body in a fine way that honors your tissue, cells, organ systems inside your body, as well as The cyclical processes that's outside our body. Cells, tissues, organs, organ systems, they also have cyclical processes, which is also called physiology or metabolism or breathing practices. Breathing. A breath is, there's an inhalation, there's a pause, there's an exhalation, there's a pause, there's an inhalation. So there's a cyclical process to it. Heartbeat has a lub, dub, yeah? Muscles expand, contract, expand, contract. You work a certain time and after some time you rest. And then again you work and again you rest. So there's a cyclical pattern there. After day, there's night, after night, there's day. No matter which part of the globe you are, whether or not you have a day-night cycle, your body functions by circadian rhythms. This may not be a popular idea of how circadian rhythms are regarded. Circadian rhythms may be associated with the sun and moon cycles. But consider that our own body has sun and moon, and also called as a light photon and the dark photon. That's one way to look at it. But it's also day and night cycles, or cortisol and melatonin is one way to look at the day and night, because cortisol is said to be produced during the day, which activates your digestive processes, and melatonin is said to be when the sun sets and when it's more dark. Our body already has cortisol and melatonin. Yeah. So a person in a geographical location where there is not these sun, moon, 24 hour cycles. There are some places where there is just 24 hours sunlight. Their body still has, they still have a human body. Yeah. So I'm referring to the day-night inside our own biological processes. And that requires slowly paying attention to 10 vayus. Okay. I've made a few videos on some of the breaths, some of the vayus. For example, I've listed them as eye breathing, ear relaxation, eyelid breathing, yeah, nose breath, pelvic breath, protect your galaxy, practice, yeah, so that's one. Belly button breathing, yeah, belly button havan. There are some exercises, some videos I made on, apparently it's called as Dhananjaya Pranayama, but we have our own ideas about what Dhananjaya Pranayama is. So I've made my take on it from a movementless yoga perspective. And then recently I've made one more post on Devadatta Vayu. These are practices that is not obsessive compulsive breathing based, not obsessive compulsive practices. I call it as art. Obsessive compulsive practice of lots of techniques and how-tos. I call that as art. There's a certain art to it. Artifice, artificial. Yeah, there's a certain art to it, which is also technology. The technology of how to draw something, technology of how to write, how to cook. Over time, these technologies have evolved. And I call my method of yoga as artless, which means you need to study the art of it and then go to another aspect of it, another level of it, another where it is artless, where it's kind of, you combine them all together and not just stuck in this processes, this is how you do things, and to a little smooth and rounding out instead of being sharp, sticky outy bits. Okay? That's also called fine living. Like when you grind things into fine paste, yeah? Beautiful. So you like, for example, coffee with a little sugar, and then you frisk it. Is it for frisking? Froth it, yeah? With a little bit of warm water. It's smooth and it gives a nice texture. So consider movementless yoga to be like that. So you not have to go into obsessive compulsive techniques and how-tos, and if you do this is when you'll get the benefit of it. And yeah. So and then there is the techniques too. so that you're maintaining a certain composition, because you need to check. It's like you have a measuring gauge. You say you measure the temperature of water, you use an instrument, and that's formed over time on what better to do. So, if, for example, a human body, the structure of a human body formed over time. So you need to check with, is your bodily structure that of a bodily, human bodily structure? That needs a little recalibration. So you need to regularly recalibrate, and there is a certain practice by which you are continuing your betterment process through movementless yoga. Okay. So that's like time is measured between two states. Yeah. Time is when one state of an object moves to another state, and then the time taken for it to move back into the states, that is called as time. And we consider that there is space and time, or there is two kinds of constant, okay, so to speak. So there is, you can't say static and dynamic. It's also one way to look at it. And both is important. Otherwise, you get stuck in one or the other. Yeah. So I hope this gives you a little perspective on what time is, or space. We will come to that. But you don't want to talk about many things at once. So they talk about state, and Hebrews talking about 22 states of being. Yeah. 22 states of matter. Um, and 22 into 2 forms 44. Yeah, so you need to consider that you have 22, and then there's a complementary aspect to the 22 to form the 44. So you need to study all the 44, yeah, for the door to open. Ayodhya has 44 doors. Ayodhya temple. Sarva Roga Hara Chakra. Yeah, that has fine details. And because Ayodhya is talking about one state of becoming, there is still the Goloka Vrindavana, yeah, which is different stages of becoming. They call it as ascension, but it's actually civilization, yeah, states of civilization. So for that, it's more than 40. Well, it's 44. 44 for a person. So we have how I wonder what you are, a structure representing 44 doors and so many pillars. That composition needs to come for a human being. So 44 doors are open. And so I have an image, a mandala, so to speak, that I drew. It's like a logo, an icon, yeah, a logo representing the composition for a human being, yeah. But first you need to become an I, I with a dot, person, little I dot. And that requires healthy and natural breathing, yeah. And we are covering little by little on the 10 vayus for a representation name. Like it's like 10 organ systems, 12. Because you have 10, and then you need to regard them in terms of little me and big me, so to speak. Yeah. Because each person is at least 12 layers deep. Yeah, we have 12 organ systems. And these 12 vayus have their influence on the 12 organ systems. So we got some work to cover. So while people are doing these obsessive compulsive breathing patterns and getting psyched up, I'm noticing these patterns. So this is kind of like a news. If you notice somebody psyching themselves up with obsessive compulsive breathing patterns, maybe you should guide them to me, because they don't know what's the discomfort they don't want to be in, but would rather be psyched up into some crystals or some addictive practices. So they're not in the present moment, or they're in their own little trance state, bliss. Yeah. And consequently, not doing the work that they have the capacity to do. because somebody's got to do their job from their office. Yeah. If they're going to be doing other people's works, then their work is not getting done. No, every office has its own job to do. So I hope this brings you a little perspective if you're one among those people, and you're having a difficulty of having a good life with what you already have. Then I'll be able to bring clarity on, bring your attention to those aspects that you already have, so that life from where you are, how you are, as lived, can be made better, so that you don't have to go into the psyching up practices. Yeah. It's also called psychology. And there are also psychiatrists. Yeah. From the necessary to maintain normalcy. Yeah. So drink a little water. That's likely to at least moisten some of your tissues. Okay, your tissues may be dry. Okay, which may be you getting into these psyched up practices so you can in some way moisten up your tissues. Because there are endocannabinoids. Yeah. So that may be why people are doing this. Okay. Okay. All right, coping mechanisms. All right. So I've had another insight. There are other ways to juice up your tissues. Yeah. To improve the health composition of your body, especially like, for example, if you've gone through, say, hemodialysis or those kinds of practices, your body tissues are going kind of dry. So you need to then moisten your tissues and restore the health of your tissues, because blood gets removed a little bit, yeah, during the hemodialysis process. So, okay. All right. So a lot more exercises on bettering your care muscles, the muscles of your body. We are all one full system full of cares, yeah, which is why our muscles have expansion contraction abilities. Okay, so further videos on improving your care muscles. So whether or not you've gone through hemodialysis or through dieting practices or obsessive compulsive breathing practices, and then your tissue don't know how to keep all of them together and functioning. Or care muscles and coping mechanisms. Not so much working, yeah. Working the way it is, we can make things better. So thank you so much for your kind attention. I hope this has been of value to you. Good day.